the air. The sun should going down, the moon to take care. Throw on my jeans and I hit the town.
Welcome to this edition of Real Estate Renegades. Today, this is part one in a multi-part series where I'm talking about the stages of a real estate agent's career. And today we're focusing on Agent 1.0. Real Estate Agent 1.0 is a description of kind of what to do when you get into the industry with a limited budget, you're a stone cold rookie, you've got no listings, and you're just starting out as the least experienced agent in an area. How on earth do you get traction when you're up against 100 plus more experienced agents than you and you're brand new? What the hell do you do? Well, I'm talking today with Jason Bond, my friend who is my first $1 million performer as a student and friend and colleague of mine. He was even an employee of mine. We never even used to think of ourselves that way, but he worked for my company and he is truly the best example of a category one, an agent 1.0, because the guy was the first $1 million performer that we created using nothing more than the strategies that you're going to get in this web training on Agent 1.0 as part of this mini series. So Glenn Twiddle and Jason Bond. Apologies for my voice. I'm so glad Jason turned up on this webinar because it allowed me to only do half the work there. And so Jason and I are going to discuss what you can do to take yourself to the top, starting with nothing. Let's go. Yeah, good, man. Just push record, folks. I've got Jason Bond on with me. We're going to kick off this session with Jace. How long you got, man?
Might take 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, wonderful, bro. I'm so happy to hear that. Because as you can hear, my voice is cactus. Have a listen to this shit. It's freaking
You sound a little rusty.
panicking all night saying, I got a 2 or 3 hour webinar to do tomorrow. How am I going to do it? And I'm praying, please tell me Bondy, because I spoke to Jason weeks ago about whether he could jump on and I said, please tell me Bondy's still good for tomorrow. At least it gives me a co-host to kind of hang a little bit. So I'm really glad to hear that, my man.
No, thanks for having me, mate. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no. So let me sort of set the scene a little bit. Because it kind of, what we're going to talk about today is really what some of the agents that I've worked with and taught have got in common. And that includes Jason. And really, I'm going to skip along to the bit where where I sort of talk about the different types of agents. And I'll go back to some of the slides that I'm skipping. But, oh, there he is. Have a look at that, Jace. Hey?
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Look at that young rooster. Hey?
Oh, geez. It must be at least 15 years ago, I think, that
Definitely.
photo.
I think that was at that party we did, or you did, where you introduced All Brisbane Realty, perhaps? It was at one of the pubs in New Farm. I'm sure that was at that event.
It was that James Bond charity event we did for something. Yes, it was.
Yeah, Ripper. Yeah, so
It was a fun night.
but the only reason I put all these slides up is these are some of my early students from back 15 years ago. And I tell you, a few of them, rest their souls, aren't with us anymore. Nikki Pinker is there from WA. Susie Nehemiah is there from Ipswich. Both of those amazing ladies have passed away, unfortunately. But I suppose I only say all of this stuff to say, for any of you guys that are new to me, this isn't my first rodeo. I've been doing this for a long time. But in working with these champions, many of whom are household names in the industry now, I'm kind of putting together everything, because not only did they pay me to learn from me, but I learned from them. I can't help but be hanging out with Jason Bond and see what he's got in common with Chris Gilmore, with Matt Steinway. And when they've got something in common, then that's something to really note. Now, how they're different, the fact that, 20 years ago when I met Jason, shit, it was longer than that. Holy hell. Anyway,
Yes,
let's not even admit it,
22
Jace.
years. Yeah.
We were in our, Jason in his late 20s, me in my early 30s, young, dumb, full of stuff. And, we were chasing, and our hobby maybe was being a bit drinking. Jack Daniels was our hobby. Matt Steinway's hobby, for the last 20 years has been health and wellness and life longevity. Chris Gilmore's is Formula 3 race car driving, and so on and so forth. Everyone's got their thing, how we're different or how those top performing agents are different isn't helpful, or it might be marginally helpful, but everyone's got their different roadmap of how they do things. But when they've got something in common, that's the principle that Napoleon Hill based the book Think and Grow Rich on. He went and found all these squillionaires, found out the like 12 principles they've got in common, documented them, and that became the Bible of wealth creation. So essentially, I'm still trying to document it and get it out of my head, what you guys as top performers have got in common so that I can write the Think and Grow Rich of real estate, not based on any one agent's success formulas, but the cumulative net of what you guys all have in common. I've got a really good list and I'm loving how this is coming together nicely. And what I sort of identified is definitely a few types of real estate agents. And I've picked a few. Yeah, where are we? Where's my goddamn slide? There it is. Okay, all that for one slide that says Real Estate Agent version 1.0. So this is where we all start. And the reason I wanted to have a chat with Jason today is Jason and I met when I didn't know anything more than Real Estate Agent version 1.0. This is how me and Jace were trained 20 plus years ago, is they taught us prospecting. They taught us now, look, we've both, I'm sure, Jace, perfected our cold call scripts over the years so that we've got a call that we make out to a random human out in the world and say, hey, do you want to sell? So they teach us a script and a dialogue and we perfect that. Then we've got a listing presentation that does the job, that once we force our way into the door, we've got some conversion tools that can do the job to win us the listing. And we've got the ability to handle objections that when they say, oh, yeah, but you've only been in the business 3 months. And didn't I see an army uniform in the back of your car, Bond? What are you talking about? Why shouldn't I go with Judy Goodyear down the road, who's from Ray White? So Jason's got to have an objection handling skill set to handle that. And one thing we definitely needed was motivation. If you're going to be doing it the way version agent 1.0 is, you got to have something to motivate you, whether it's internal or external. And one thing I noticed in that kind of, more, let's say, traditional real estate agency or whatever, a lot of our marketing and stuff is office centric. And the extension of that is the old Genman system. And Gary Pittard, I believe, bought it now, and I think it's had another rebrand. But essentially, in that old system, the agents weren't even allowed to have their face and name and phone number on the marketing materials. Now, that's an extension at one extreme. But a lot of offices certainly had brand placed over agent in many, many ways. So I wanted to spend some time, though, because this is not to say that Agent 1.0 is necessarily evil or bad. It's just where we all have to start, even today, if you don't have a marketing budget, because Agent 2.0, I'm going to do a session on that, and it might not even be today. We might even, now that I've got Jason here for that extent of time, we might even just spend this whole time on what to do as Agent 1.0, because in the absence of a marketing budget or ongoing cash flow, meaning you're already an agent earning, I'd say really Agent 2.0 starts to be a realistic opportunity at maybe $200,000 in GCI a year plus. And you probably got to be on a half decent agent split, that if you're on a 40 or a 50% split, even at 200,000, your living wage is pretty much everything that you've got left. If you're on 50-50, you're on 100 gross, you got some expenses and stuff, you're taking home 60 or 70. There's still not a whole lot of marketing budget to reinvest in making you Agent 2.0, which is what I've spent the majority of my 15-year coaching career focused on. Because a damning admission, and Jason knows this, that's why he was a higher performer in our business than I was, and I was the principal licensee, sales manager, recruiter, ended up being one of the partners and shareholders of the company, and Jason was a far better performer than me because I was a far worse Agent 1.0 than he was. He was the best Agent version 1.0 I've ever seen. Him in my office. I remember, and we're going to, I'm sure, tell some war stories about even our own office accusing Jason of making up his numbers because they couldn't believe he was doing so much volume. So, but Jace, have I missed anything in, I suppose, describing what entry to real estate has to look like if you don't have a budget with which to market yourself?
Look, no, you've hit it on the nose. I mean, Agent 1.0 with no budget, it's you and it's you alone. So it's old school doing cold calls. It's doing the door knocking. It's doing the things you do without a budget. So I think you've hit it on the nose there. Exactly what Agent 1.0 old school
Yeah.
was and is.
And that's all we had, mate. We had so
Yeah.
few typical real estate agency assets. And yet, even though, it had its challenges, that whole business we were brought into, because I was brought in like you. I was early. I was a couple of intakes ahead of you.
Mm.
But I was still brought in as a salesperson. And then there was this board of, in some ways, there were some really clever people on that board who really got some principles right that in some cases have been duplicated globally. Like, I don't know how much you've looked into that EXP model, but globally it's done really well. Australia's done good, but globally it's taken over. And have you noticed how similar it was to some of the principles we had back in the day?
I think the basic principles always work, don't they? I mean, I know I'm doing projects now, but if I was to go back into Resi right now, I was Agent 1.0, I have no doubt that within a year or two, I'd be out there again, the top 5%. I mean, if you do the basics right, telemarketing, phone calls, and you're speaking to everybody, you can't help but do well. So, EXP, you're right. I haven't looked into it too much, but I know that they do think it's about doing the basics right on
Well,
a
man,
model that's
and mate,
not
the
overly
thing that I thought
expensive.
was innovative though, Jace, is what I'm sort of talking about. You remember when Marty and the board and Michael and all of that, they
Mhm.
floated this idea of as you need less mentorship, you get a higher split and you get to mentor someone else. Like I got to mentor and got a little overrider over the business you did. Because
Yep.
as I helped you, I got a little overrider. But as you got to be a higher leader, I got less of an overrider on your business and you started to take on a person that you could get an overrider on. Mate, they've formalized that principle globally. And I thought, Jesus Christ, those lunatics back in
Mhm.
2002 were right. They were just
Yep.
15 years too early.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, it makes sense. It's the old school Amway system, isn't it? The old pyramid where
Yeah,
you bring
it's
people in and you make an override and
it's
what have
great.
you.
But even the franchise strategies, they're kind of the same. Like
Mm.
Josh Brockhurst is on here. He's one of the best Century 21 guys in the country. And, you've got Charles Tarby, who buys the master franchise rights for Australia. And then he's got state leadership and all of those things. Then there's a principal licensee. Well, all of those levels above the Josh Brockhurst is taking a little overrider on what Josh's
Mm.
sales that he's writing. So, in many ways, it's sort of the same old, same old. It's just that instead of rewarding the master franchise holder and all of those things, they're rewarding the people, which is, it's just an
Yeah.
interesting concept. And when I saw it, I thought, bloody hell. And I don't even know what to call our old company because we had 7 brand names in 6 years or some shit. It was freaking lunacy. But
Yeah.
let's call it Alto because I think that might have been the
Yeah, it was.
longest staying one.
Yeah.
But there were 6 or 7. They would rebrand every year as soon as we start to get some traction. So
Yeah.
every listing we made, we didn't generate it because of brand because we never had a brand long enough to generate anything based on that.
Yeah.
It was all
Yeah.
based on our own efforts. But going back to that, do you remember? Let's sort of go through those principles. Do you remember the script? Given that you poor bastard, you said it 400 times a week for years. Do you remember your initial script and what tweaks you would have made to your prospecting script and what outcome you're trying to achieve from that initial? Hello, Mr. Random Seller who does something once
Mm.
every 8 years. Hey, have I happened to catch you on the week that you're thinking of selling and do you need me? Tell me your thoughts on the whole sheer what script do you say when someone
Yeah.
almost certainly does not need you right now and here you are going, hi, it's me.
Yeah. Look, the truth is, over the years, I've tried hundreds of different scripts. You get the agents who are there for the long term who want to build rapport. So it's not necessarily about result now. Hey, Glenn, it's Jason. Tell me about you. Tell me about your family. Tell me about your kids. How many dogs you got? Blah blah blah. And you're doing that long term play. And with me, when I was fresh. I was never about a long term play. It was always about how can I get a listing now as quickly as I can because the more listings I get, the more brand exposure I get, the more buyers I have to my open homes, and I'll utilize that my building blocks. So for me, in the end, my script was really simple. Hey, Glenn, it's Jason Bond from Elevator Pro Group. How you going? Great. Calling about your house in New Farm today. I'll keep it really quick, Glenn. Have you got any thoughts on selling your house? You might say, no. Glenn, if I got you a great price, would you consider selling? No. Okay, great, Glenn. All the best. Thank you. Next. So for me, it was just a numbers game because I figured if I could speak to 400 people every single week, I'll get 10 people or I'll get 5 people or I'll get somebody that's thinking about it. Because you're right, it's a game of luck. You want to call someone at the right time when they're actually thinking about selling, and that's the odds of that happening aren't that great. So I would rather speak to volume and speak to 400 people, really short calls, very insincere, very driven by a result. And the result is, yes, I'm thinking about that. Oh, yeah, if you give me a crazy price, give me 3 mil, I'll sell, or whatever it is. It's for me, it's always in the end, it's a number game. And I worked that out within about 6-7 weeks of doing 400 calls a week. I was like, geez, I'm wasting so much time. I can only do 200, 250 calls a week if I'm doing big, long scripts, detail, trying to build rapport, pretending I care if you got kids or a wife or a dog, because I don't. I just want to make sure to sell a house.
And
So,
dude, I was what you're describing. I was the
yeah,
one that would have the 10-minute chat if they would talk to me.
yep.
Probably because I desperately wanted 10 minutes of talking to someone who's willing to talk to me rather than another 8 calls telling me to fuck off kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing is you do get a lot of F offs from people and very rude people, but I think it's wax on, wax off. Because I mean, for every negative call, you eventually get a positive call, and even if you don't, if you just follow the system, I worked out in the end after you're doing this for a long time. I worked at my numbers because I know when I worked for you, Glenn, you made me write down the numbers. So every week, Monday morning weekly meeting, it'll be attempted calls, seen calls, appointments booked, et cetera, et cetera. So after years, I kept all my weekly things. So I ended up doing the maths, and for every 33 calls I did, I booked an appraisal. So if I had a shit week and I only booked 2 calls, it wouldn't bother me because I knew to believe in the maths, to believe the numbers. Because what's it was saying? Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So I looked at every 33 calls I booked an appraisal. For me, it was just like, cool. If I do my 400 seen calls every week, which is what my number was, I would book 13 appraisals a week. So, and it always, that was the average.
Yeah.
Some weeks I'd book 3 appraisals, some weeks I'd book 20 appraisals, but you just have to believe in the numbers. So if that was my numbers, why would I do a 10-minute call? Because there's only so many minutes in the day. By the time you do your prospecting, then you eventually, when you have listings, you're doing open homes, you're doing buyer appointments, doing all your buyer follow-up calls, your vendor calls as well. So, and as we all know, as a good agent, you've got to always keep your prospecting consistent, which is where a lot of people stuff up as well. Is you get 3 listings all of a sudden, you're just doing buyer appointments, vendor appointments. You've still got to keep your listings up because we all know the old trick. You get listings, all of a sudden you're up here, and then you're down here again because you're too busy. Then you start prospecting again, and you do the old zigzag. But the trick's always to be that consistent. So if you're time poor, keep your calls shorter, and it just worked.
Yeah. What do you think about an agent walking in today? Because it's all well and good for me and you to reminisce about back in the day where I can absolutely admit that Jason's way is superior to my way. Now, you might, yeah, so if you're tempted to sit there and say, oh, but Glenn, I'm a good people person. I like your style better of having a talk with someone and genuinely getting to know them. Well,
Yep.
know that you're going to have to spend more time on your business than
Yep.
Jason, period. And you probably, well, my best year in real estate was 380,000 in commissions, and that included my overriders on the sales team. So I was a barely above average salesperson when all I knew was how to be agent 1.0. Jason
Yep.
was our first $1 million performer at Agent 1.0 because his way got in the volume that worked. But boy, oh boy, did it take an intestinal fortitude. When Jason said the words flippantly, water off a duck's back, he's kind of just assuming that all of us can do it. And I know it's hard for us all to do it with such ease because for me, everyone that to Jason be water off a duck's back, for me, it was a dagger through the heart and a personal attack because, I'm a bit of a sookie lala. So, but Jace, would you say Because back in the day, okay, let me give you some of the reasons that I'm going to say as a new modern agent, oh, but Jason, that won't work in 2026. Now, I'm still coming to this industry without a budget. So it's like I'm starting a business that's a coffee shop. I don't have a penny to fit out the shop front. I don't have enough money to pay the rent on the shop front. I've got nothing, but I can make a goddamn good coffee. I got my barista's license and here I go. Okay, so
Yep.
if I'm that coffee shop owner, that's the equivalent of coming into real estate cold, thinking you're going to make a mark. So is the Asian version 1.0 going to still work in today's marketplace? And let me bounce some ideas as to why I might sook about it and say it's not going to work. Oh, but Jace, RP data, the numbers are all bad. There's no numbers. It's horrible,
Yeah.
and people are time poor, Jace. People are really annoyed at getting phone calls and they never answer their phones. And that's not going to work for me, Glenn. What would you say?
I've got a great response. So the truth, back in the day when we used RP data, it was all landlines. This is 22 years ago, right? And not everyone had mobile phones. So RP data had no mobile phone numbers. My brain's not working, but these days there's those programs you can pay and get mobile phones. It's a lot easier to get data these days than it was back then. So back then, I worked most nights to 8 o'clock because I had to get people when they were home and answered the landline, the 33580 999. The actual landline, because that's how people answer their phones. Whereas now you can call during the day, God forbid, and people will answer their mobile phones, whether it's lunchtime or whether it's whatever. A lot of people still don't answer the phones during the day if they're at work, depending what your job is. But yeah, Upper Data was all landlines. Hence, like you, mean Ash and Harpreet, all the boys, we'd be working doing cold calls at 8 o'clock every night because the 5 to 8 was peak because everyone's home and they're answering the landline.
Yep. Hey, tell me that last bullet point I had on there, because this is talking to the last bullet point there, motivation, because Agent 1.0 takes something internally.
Yep.
Now, you had a background of discipline because Jason's ex-military. We got Jason out of the military, really. In fact, Jason did both for a while, for maybe a year or something. Jason was at the army in the morning, going AWOL from the goddamn army, risking military prison to make it to our compulsory sales meetings on Monday morning. Mate, I remember those days, bro, when you would have to go AWOL, risking federal goddamn court-martial to come to our goddamn sales meetings. But give us your recollections of how we stayed motivated, what the company and what we had to do to scrape sooks like me off the floor, put me back into that goddamn chair to make cold calls again. Tell us some of the strategies we did to keep ourselves somehow fired up and able to tolerate, like in your case,
Yeah.
394 rejections a week to get your 6 people who'll talk to you.
Look, I think generally speaking, you've got to be self-motivated, full stop, to get into real estate. And if you're not, you're probably in the wrong game. But I mean, look, we were lucky. It was a very young office. So there was, I think I was 21, maybe 22, and there was a bunch of young fellas like us. And there was a bell there. So it was a race to ring that bell every time you booked an appraisal. So, and sometimes you book in a bunch of days. So it was just, you went in competition with everybody else, but it was fun. Everyone was cold calling, the whole office, all day, every day. It was like the movies where you see in America, on Wall Street, and everyone's in there, on the phone calls and ringing the bell, and it was really high energy office, which is
I
awesome.
tell you,
So,
I still feel for Rose, that poor woman in
Rose
amongst
Wright,
all us
Triple R,
lunatics.
yeah, Rosie Wright, Real Estate, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah,
She was
yeah, yeah.
so tolerant of this young masculine lunatic boys club, and
Yeah.
yet she took to it really, really well, learned the tricks and learned the strategies, and she used that, wonderfully to her advantage in her listing appointment. That kind of,
Yeah.
more
Uh,
mature, not, I mean, I'm
yeah.
even going back, I don't even know how old she was now, but she was maybe a little bit older than me, so compared to our office, she was old,
No, she was. But it was funny. It reminds me, like, it was so long ago that we used to have the white pages. And I remember sometimes we'd come up just for fun, and we'd all take turns, just open the page, pull a number, and we'd call that whole page. Not something they're in. Hey, Glenn, it's Jason. I'm calling from Alto Real Estate. Ring out to see if you think of selling your house. And can you remember we just do random shit, just call anyone in the white pages just we know where they live, but
Well,
just having fun.
and that was
We
one of
made
our
it fun.
strategies. I remember
Mm.
before, because we were in inner city Brisbane. So in some cases, these things might be like maybe one of Jason's properties in New Farm might be owned by a corporation, right? So harder to get the owner's decision maker's phone number. So you could do a title search or some sort of business search that costs money to get the contact details. But I remember the rules were you had to check RP data, check Price Finder, PDS Live, check the white pages, search them online, knock on the door,
Yeah,
send a letter, and if none of those things got a response, then you could get a title search and pay the money to get the
yeah,
owner's details. But boy, oh boy, did they make us look for those owners, you know?
yeah,
And sometimes you'd find them, like I remember you saying you'd find them years later, they'd turn up at an open and
yeah.
you'd see where they go in. Oh, I've been looking for you for years.
Yeah, it was a lot harder back then to get details.
Yeah.
So it definitely wasn't easier.
And do you remember? I don't know if this was a mistake or a good thing, but I remember we didn't do it for long, but where we would do shots if ever anyone swore at anyone or, and
Yeah.
I tell you, there was a few times when I don't know how far over the limit I was driving home after some of those call sessions, but it
Oh,
was whatever it took, wasn't it? Just to tolerate the sheer
yeah.
volume that you've got to do.
Yeah, and I think these days you've got the Coronas offices are pretty similar now, from my understanding.
Always were.
They're always a really high volume
Yep.
office. I mean, I think they had a lot more pressure on us. I know Coronas. If you don't hit X amount of calls and bookings, you get sacked. Whereas we didn't have rules like that.
But they are
That was
paying.
commission only. Yeah, no, you're
They're
right.
paying a goddamn retainer, brother. All of
Yeah,
this, you have a business within a business, Jason. You work when you want to. Hey, if I'm paying you a wage, all that nonsense is out the window. Your job
100%.
is to
I
connect
own
with
you.
100 people a day or
Yeah,
get the hell out of here.
yeah, 100%, 100%. So, um, yeah, you're right. I mean, it'd be interesting. It still works, but you're right. I think it helped having an office full of young people having fun, and we'd have pizza nights all the time as well, and make it fun. So it
Yeah.
was. I do miss those days. They were good.
We had, and mate, I tell you, some of the successes that came out of that office, mate,
Yeah,
no mistake, there's still a few names in there that have done millions that were all
yeah,
part of that. Yourself included, of course, Damien, Michael, myself. A lot of us have gone on to really successful careers in many ways. And Jason Smith has been a Ray White mainstay out on the
Mm.
north side forever. So it's been
Yeah.
interesting to
It
see where a
has.
lot of the boys have ended up.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
Um,
there's some good guys there.
Yeah. So what about the once you've got somehow you've figured out a way to discipline yourself, whether it's alcohol, tell me about because this was look, I can admit it now because it was a frustration back in the day, right? But I understand the principles now because now I've been called into other people's offices to play the role that Pat Mesiti played in our office, right? Because the frustration for me back then as a sales manager at the time was Pat would come in, say something that was maybe even less helpful than maybe if I would say it, right? Because I would say it with a real estate context, and Pat would say something without any real estate experience. He would just say it from a general perspective. But I
Yeah,
remember when Pat would come in, I would get feedbacks from the team saying, that was just fantastic. That was the greatest session we've ever had, and I
yeah.
can't wait to do it again. I'm like, bloody hell, I've been saying that shit every week, and yet Pat says it and it's bloody hits home. But tell me about your value, the value you add to mentorship and to learning from, whether it's a speaker like a Pat Mesiti or someone from another industry like a Marty who came from insurance but brought that experience in influencing and presenting to us. Tell us about the value that you got out of mentoring. And like you can see, there's a bunch of the books that we read right now in this bookshelf
Yeah.
still now behind me. They're all bloody there because I hold them so dear.
Well, yeah, look, you're so right. I'll tell you a story slightly off topic, it's slightly different. So I'm a big AFL guy, and so I've taught my son how to play football, and he's got a bit of a unique kicking style, and I've been for years trying to work on it and fix him. And then we had one training session with Lockie Neal. We did a one-on-one session with him, and Lockie's like, "Who taught you how to kick?" And my son's like, "Oh, my dad did." He's like, oh, geez, you obviously didn't play footy. And he's talking about how to do his kick. In one session, he trained him how to teach how to kick properly. And I'm like, I've been teaching him for bloody years how to kick properly. He won't listen to me. So I think Pat Mesiti, I think sometimes when you hear the same message from one person, sometimes you can easily just go in one ear, out the other. And hearing it somewhere else, sometimes you can just hear the message slightly differently.
Did Lockie
So,
say the same sort of thing as you were saying,
same
though?
shit, same shit. Drop it
Oh,
like a rocket, laces to faces, all the normal bullshit you teach kids how to hold footballs and stuff properly. I've been teaching him for years. But um but no, you're right. I mean, look, back in the day, a big part of when training with you guys was always reading books. And I've never been a book reader myself, but yeah, I read
me
all
either.
obviously Pat's books and Tony Robbins and all those legends. And I think the one you got me on was who moved my
Yeah,
cheese or
who
who
moved my
moved the cheese.
cheese? Magic of Thinking Big
That
was the
that
one they
that
got
one
me
was
with.
good. And
I don't know
I
if
think the
you
ones
would.
I really liked
Hmm.
was John McGrath books. I
Oh,
rated
you
John
Inc.
McGrath books because I
You
mean,
don't have to be
yeah, New
born
Ink,
brilliant.
yes, like that they were awesome, and
Yeah.
maybe because they were real estate based,
Yep.
kind of. So, and back then John was the only independent that was the superstar. Whereas now there's heaps of independents that are great, but back 20 years ago, like McGrath was
John
the
was the
pinnacle.
king.
He was the king.
Well,
He was the
mate, to
absolute
me, he
king.
still is.
Yeah, well, I don't think he is anymore. I think he's been overtaken from a couple of new
Oh no,
kings.
I don't even mean in sub objective numbers and sheer volume of influence and stuff. I just mean I don't think this industry in Australia would be the
Yeah.
same without John McGrath and
Oh
what he did
no,
over that
I,
10-year run. You know?
I agree. Whereas I think Marty Fox is probably the new
Yeah,
John McGrath these days.
yeah.
But as much I don't. Anyway, that's another thing. But no, look, I think yeah, reading your books and everything else, and hearing messages sometimes from different people just relates to different people.
I love that story about the same thing with your kid. But
Doing,
I think it might
yeah,
be,
man,
Chase,
this is how you
is
hold the ball.
his, because this comes to another point that's more in the next session, which is Agent 2.0, and that's positioning. See,
Mhm.
here's the thing, the difference between dad telling him and Lockie telling him, not that I know who Lockie is, because I actually did the same thing for Naomi's son, Theo. I hired Matt Pavlich to come and
Oh yeah,
take his AFL team and put him through their paces for an hour. And it was a
yeah,
surprise. Mate, it blew their mind because Theo's a Dockers
awesome.
tragic. And Pav
Yeah,
walks in and does a training session with him. Lost their
awesome,
minds, you know. And
awesome.
so can you imagine how intently their emotional state is just so open to learning because of who is giving the message, not even what the message is. There's something to that.
100%, 100%. Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
No, I
yeah,
agree. I think sometimes you can hear the same message 10 times. So you hear it in your words that sync to you, then it can work.
yeah. I remember when, I mean, look, it's a name drop and it's a kind of a weird personal story, but when Arnold Schwarzenegger was giving me shit about weight loss
Yeah.
and just giving me the stupidest advice ever, like the most banal, like, look, it took you 20 years to get this bad. It's okay if it takes you 5 years to get it down. And like, just nonsense like that. And I got down to my ideal weight by the next time I saw him.
Awesome.
And that's because of who he is, not the advice he was giving. And he
Yeah.
paraded me around his house because I know I invited you to come with me that year
Yeah,
to
you
his
did.
house. That
Yeah.
year, he was parading me around his house because I'd lost all this weight, showing me off to all his friends, taking all the credit for him himself. He's like, look at him. This guy, when I first met him, he was this. And now look at him. He's fantastic and shit.
That's awesome. That's
Okay, but
awesome.
I tell you, I'm glad he hasn't had parties since COVID. He's kind of gone a bit quiet because I've sort of put on a bit, so I'm back on the grind again, brother. So anyway, I'm
Get-
down 14, but I've got another freaking 14 to go.
you
Um,
can do it. You can do
yeah,
it.
but okay, so
GT.
let's get from so we're down from prospecting. We've got some
Yeah.
motivating. So we've somehow motivated ourselves, whether it's through books or external factors and experts and people we admire saying, you can do it, Chase, and off we go and do it. We've hopefully got some internal drive like you. For me, my way I did it was daily listening to Pat Mesiti, Eric Thomas, Jim Rowan.
Yeah.
I daily listened to stuff for an hour or two a day on the way to work
Yeah.
just so I could anesthetize myself to the pain for the day. That was my
Yeah.
way of, I suppose, doing it. Let's assume we've got that done.
Yeah.
Tell us about that next and crucial part of it, which was listing presentation. say you talk your way into the appraisal. You're
Yep.
Jason Bond circa 2006. You've got a couple of years experience or something, and but you aren't as experienced as Judy Goodger and Margaret Waters and
Yeah.
whomever else it might be at the time that was incumbent number
Yeah.
one go-to agents in New Farm. And here's a young upstart out of the army, no experience, very little track record, not in a big brand. How
Yeah.
does someone approach the appraisal and listing presentation opportunity when you are coming from behind the eight ball? You are
Yeah.
not coming from a leadership.
Yeah.
You're not winning the race and you're maintaining your lead. You are,
Yeah.
you're Clubber Lang chasing Apollo Creed, no,
Yeah.
chasing Rocky. You
Yeah.
aren't the comfortable champ who's defending the title.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, a great question. Really great question. I mean, I think with my experience, there's a couple of things. So I know when I first started, the big guys, I, I use Matt Lancashire, for example. Everyone knows Matt Lancashire. So when you listen to Matt Lancashire, and you've got Matt Lancashire and you've got about 3 or 4 of his team members. I've been to a bunch of Matt's opens and I've done my investigating, and Matt doesn't do a lot of his opens because he can't, because he's got so much volume. Sarah Hackett's probably the same. So, what one of my things is, when you list with Jason Bond, you'll get Jason Bond. I'll be at every single open home, which means I speak to every single buyer. You're actually getting me. You're not getting some 18-year-old junior, 17-year-old junior. You get me for all your open homes. So, obviously that's a big thing, is to know your competitors. So if I'm new now, I'm going to be a new farm. I'm going to know who's the best 3 agents, what they do, how they do things. One thing I used to do is auctions are massive in new farm. Everyone was doing auctions. So I'd come up and go, I'm not doing an auction. I'm doing it for sale. These are the reasons why, because at the moment, auctions are 40% success rate of selling, which means if you're not selling that day, if you're passing for a shit price, good luck getting a good price for it. So my strategy is, we're going to list it for sale, no price, get heap people through, get you the best price possible. So I just did the opposite of everybody else. And back then, the big agents were a guy called Ivan Lazaro, who's not here anymore.
Mm.
Brett Greensill was big, really big back then. And I can't remember the other agent now, Peter Huffman. So, and they all did options. So for me, it was really simple. I'm just going to do the opposite, not because it's better, just because it's different. Zig while others zag. So I did for sale for every single property, and that probably really helped me a lot, because it was just my point of difference was, I'm going to do for sale. Even I do agent auctions, so I think that's a good way to go. But back then, when I'm brand new, to get in the door, I had to have a point of difference. My point of difference was for sale. And funny thing is, a lot of owners hate auctions. So it was a really easy one for me to come in and go, hey, here's the stats. Look at the Korean Mail. It says last week, 42%. Here's last Saturday's paper, 43%. So all your auctions, you've only got 4 in 10 properties sell at auction. So why don't we put yours on the market and have it sold before the auction's 4 weeks, 30-day campaign? It's a good market. Let's put up here. Let's know the prices and get me doing your open homes, and just know your shit. That's how I did it.
And Jace, there's so much to unpack there. So let me go through the first one that comes is sort of the principle you just gave there is know your competition, so know what you're up
Yeah.
against, and then try and be a counterpoint to that. And what I love about what you say, mate, is this is sort of selling 101. A sale
Yeah.
happens when you've emotionally made them make a decision, and then you've given them some logical justification as to why their emotions are justified. So
Yeah.
I love that the fact that you did all of that in one strategy. You analyzed the market and noticed a
Yeah.
preponderance of auctions. You
Yeah.
found your logical justification as to why your methodology was superior, even though you can bet your ass that if those agents were in front of that seller at the same time, they would have the opportunity to rebut your stat. They would
Yeah.
say, oh, yeah, but Jace, that 40%. And they would say to the seller, yeah, but that's 40%. That doesn't include the prior to auction, which accounts for 15%. Post auction, which accounts for 29%, which means that it's back up to the 90% that Jason is saying. But because they're not there and you are, they don't have the chance to rebut. So all you need is enough logic to justify your case
Yeah.
and the enthusiasm. And the beautiful thing is you're aligning with their values that they already have they don't really like the auction methodology if it's not explained to them well. They don't
Yep.
particularly like it. So you're aligning with them. You're not having the first meeting trying to turn them around into something they don't want to do. So
Well, I think it still works today. Like even if you're an agent today, who's been in there for 10 years and you're against Matt Lancashire and Matt beats you most times. I think most people pitch auctions these days in Ascot, Hamilton, Clayfield, wherever. So I think if you get the same method today and you went up against Matt and said non-auction, or Matt does non-auctions, you say auction. As long as you say something and you can get that owner to go, yeah, Jason's right.
yeah,
I mean, it's not going to come in against Atlanta and having the same fucking pitch because you're going to lose because Matt's awesome.
yeah,
So, so I think for any agent that's missing out on your last 4 or 5 pitches, that's the question. Why am I missing out my pitch? What's my strategy? Well, I'm doing auctions. Good, don't do the same as everyone else.
mm.
That might be the point of difference between getting a listing and not getting that listing.
Yeah. I want to talk about points of difference in a moment, but before we move on to that, because that's critical. You got to have one. I want to talk about Matt. I remember this story, and this is really for the benefit of the audience because Jason, you were there. Jason and I were drinking. Jason's number one in New Farm at the time, and I do remember, Jace. We used to measure, and you were the only agent I've ever seen it, that in your patch, in your marketplace, you're the only agent I've ever seen that for a period of time, I think it might have been about a month, you had 100% market share, meaning every listing that you considered your patch in your area, all of them were Jason Bond. Not one was anyone else. I've never seen it since. Never seen it since. And that's because 400 cold calls a week, right? That's how he got there. But getting back to Matt Lancashire, we're at the pub, Jason and I. Jason's number one. We're drinking Friday afternoon, maybe 6, 7 o'clock, something like that. And Jason calls Matt because they're friends. Matt's up and coming at the time, and Jason and Matt are friends. Jason calls Matt and says, "Hey, I'm up at the Arms or some pub in New Farm. I'm here with Glenn Twiddle. Come up for a drink." I remember Jason said, "Can't, making cold calls, have fun, see you later," or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh, Jace, watch him. He's your biggest competition ever because he's a young bloke and he's not coming to drink with a mate and someone that he might like or not. I don't know if he liked me or anything or whatever.
Yeah.
But he said, hell no to that because he's got calls to do at 7 o'clock on a Friday night."
I think if you look at all those big guys, so back when I was 20 years ago, there was Matt Lancashire, Simon Caulfield came in a couple of years later.
Yep, I tried to recruit him for us.
Yeah, Heath Williams came in. One thing that all those guys all had in common was the exact same thing. They did all their open home on Saturday. Even if they finished at 3, they were there to 6 o'clock doing all the open home callbacks Saturday afternoon. They all didn't go on the piss every Friday night like we did. Not every Friday, but yeah. But
even if you did,
they did the work.
The mindset is what we're talking about. Tell me about your going out drinking on a Friday night. Tell me about a typical Friday night, Jason Bond peak success time.
So this is 23 years ago. So this
23 years ago. Tell me about a Friday night.
So this is me and I was single. So I look, quite frankly, I had my numbers. So every Friday night, I lived at North Lakes at the time. So our office was in Milton. So, and I was in the army. So I had a stretcher bed. So I got the stretcher bed and I put it in there undercover car park at the back of the office. So I'd go on a Friday night and then I'd sleep. Sometimes I wouldn't sleep, but I'd sleep on the stretcher bed and Saturday night. So when I first started, my first year or two was just, I worked 7 days a week. I worked every single Sunday, I worked every single Saturday. I had no listings at the start. So all I was doing was calling. So yeah, I still go out Friday and Saturday nights, but I didn't have the money to go back to North Lake. So I literally slept in the office. Yep. So, but it worked.
Have I got a false memory about, it might be a false memory that I've convinced myself was true because I think it's hilarious, but I might be just making it up, that you used to come from the army in your fatigues, like in your, camo shit. Mm-hmm. And by the way, man, I didn't have such an appreciation for the military as I do 20 years later. So, man, good on you for doing that shit. And, Anzac Day coming up and stuff. My reverence for the military has only gone up. And it seems I've known so many military blokes and I've never thanked them for fucking doing that. And I utterly have reverence for what you guys did. And that's yourself included, my man.
Thank you.
And, but is it a false memory that the girls used to try and catch a sneak peek at you getting changed out of your fatigues into your goddamn uniform because you had to be in a suit for the sales meeting.
That's the first I've heard of this story.
Okay, so you didn't catch the girls coming having a peek up in the back car park.
I caught Mario Nagy a couple of times, but
The Nage. Oh, geez. So yeah, but tell us about what the hell were you thinking where you're up at 4 a.m. to be on barracks, then, then coming into the office to start work after you've gone AWOL, make calls till whatever, then listing presentations till whatever, no sleep. Like,
look, I was lucky. So I was in the army, but I was on the way out. So I'd had a few knee reconstructions from playing football in the army. So I was allowed to leave it. I wasn't allowed to leave. I had a cool boss. I went there and signed off and did my physio for my knee, and then I was supposed to have a full day of shit. But hey, I'm cruising, and then because I was from Sydney, I was from the Sydney barracks. But I was up there for the rehab centre for the army. Was in Enoggera. So for 2 years, I just got away. I said, "Hey, I'm leaving," and no one said anything. So
wow.
I just left, and for 2 years I got my full army pay whilst I was getting rehab in the morning, going to the gym, and then literally I was in the office by 9 o'clock at Alto. So I was very lucky. I somehow skimmed that fine line of no one knew who my boss was. I think everyone thought it was somebody else, and I don't know how I got away with it, but I got away with it for 2 years, and it was great because I had a little bit of a base salary while I was doing prospecting and cold calling, so it worked.
Well, and
I was
but
lucky.
think about what you had to do though was you had to invest a certain amount of hours to either do one of two things. A, earn enough income to keep the clocks ticking because we were commission-only real estate agents. I mean, I was a commission-only sales manager because my overrider was the wage, so, and I made some sales as well. And, but basically your net function of either income generating or future income generating, which is your real estate career, what would have been a typical hours? What time would you wake to be at the army? Because that's when your typical workday had to start through till when?
I had to be at the army barracks every day at 7 o'clock, and I lived at Northlake. When you're in the army, if you're there 10 minutes early, you're late. So,
right.
So realistically, I had to be there at 6:30 every day. So I left my home at Northlake probably maybe 5:45 every day. So look, I'd probably go home at 5 o'clock. Then I stopped cold calling at 8:30 most nights because that's when you could stop calling. So obviously I was doing all landlines. So we stopped at 8:30, and then I'd spend half an hour doing my notes, getting my appointments ready for the next day and bits and pieces. Then I'd probably get home by 10 o'clock most nights.
So a typical day effectively starts work at 6:30, say, because you've got to be on site about then. So all your preppy stuff
I
and
probably had bed
travel.
at 5. Yeah.
Yep. So 5 a.m. when you wake till, so let's say the effective workday starts at 6:30 and finishes typically at 10:30. That's pretty typical. So my question is that for a beginning agent, because I think I've forgotten as a coach to start telling them, and I found an interview you and me did years ago, that kind of just says about the sheer effort that it takes to get over that painful first year. And it ain't whistling Dixie. It ain't just getting your license and saying, hey, I'm here. I know the industry's been begging for another real estate agent. Well, your prayers have been answered. Here I am.
It depends how much you want it. So I know with me, I was really, so I didn't come from any money. We had no money. I wasn't allowed to do grade 11 and 12 because my parents wanted me to have money because they couldn't afford to keep the house functioning without me having a job. So hence why I joined the army when I was 17, because get me the fuck out of here. It's not what I needed more. So when I joined the army, I was very lucky. I got my first listing on day 3 of doing cold calls. And that back in those days, you took photos yourself from a camera, which we had in the office, and then upload to REA. And then I sold my first property in day 5. And I remember I got paid $8,000. It was a piece of shit house in Bald Hills. And so very quick, I was like, oh, fuck, I just made $8,000 my first week of real estate.
Yeah. How long has this been going on?
And I was like, fuck, this is easy. Well, not easy, but my head was, I did a cold call. They want to sell. It's doable. So from there, I'm seeing how quickly I made that money. I'm like, fuck, I can really set myself up here. We all know that the more signs you get, the more listens you get, because people call you because you sign or you're expert. It gets easier and easier and easier. So I didn't want to wait 3-4 years for it to get easier. So I just made the decision, I'm just going to work. I had no girlfriend, had no partner. So I was like, I'm still gonna go out and party Friday, Saturday night. It's fuck yeah. But I'm gonna work during that time. There was many calls and fast like my 4 year apprenticeship over 1 year.
Yeah, and do you remember the efforts that we made? So this is going back now because there's sort of a sidetrack to sort of explore the type of thinking you need to be a Matt Lancashire, who eventually, when Jason sold
Yep.
his business in New Farm, became the number one, predictably so. You could spot
Yep.
that from that one instance that it revealed all. No, I
Yep.
don't want to drink on a Friday night. I've got calls to make. That showed me everything I needed to know. So no surprise that Matt became the legend that he became. And
Yeah.
so Jason was the same thing. Years of nothing but
Yeah.
work, the odd dalliance with booze and single chick, whatever the case may be, just enough to keep him, alive and
Well,
enthusiastic. And Jason,
it's sacrifice. I remember I met a few lovely young ladies back when in my early 20s who were lovely, and they all broke up with me. They got sick of me not seeing them. And I
mm,
remember I was lucky. I met my wife, Anne-Marie, I'm 20 years married this year, but I met Anne-Marie when I was like 23, 24, and I said to her, hey, I work 7 days a week. Um, I'm going to see you, but I'm not going to see you a lot. My priority is my work. If you can persevere with me for the next year and a half, because by that stage I've been doing it for 2 or 3 years, and I've already had some good traction. But
yeah,
I
you're
told him my
starting to
plan.
get there. Yep.
This is my plan. I'm going to see. I stopped working Sundays then. I'm saying I can see you all day Sunday,
Right.
and maybe once a week I'll try and finish early by 7:30, so we can go for dinner once a week. So,
Oh,
so
just push pause on that, Jace. Keep that train of thought. For any of you guys that are rookies, just listen to what that man just said. Every now and then, I might be able to squeeze in an early finish to see you, who eventually became the wife and mother of my children. I might be able to cram in maybe once a week an early mark of 7:30 p.m. I want that to sink in for all you guys saying you're working hard. That one early mark of only 7:30. I'm telling you, Jace, you're a rarity to this day, I promise you, because I speak
yeah,
to
but
hundreds of agents a week. And I'm
but
yet,
I'm not the rare guy. 'Cause I think Matt's the same. I think Simon Caulfield's the same. I think
yeah, but
Paddy
you're all
McKinnon would
rare.
have
That's
been the
what I'm
same. Drew
saying.
Davies would have been. No, we're rare because we wanted that out.
Yep.
There's no you're not second guessing why Pat McKinnon is where he is, where Drew Davies, why Matt Lancashire, Simon Caulfield, because they did the time. And as you get older, I don't do those fucking hours now.
Oh,
Jesus, I've, I've,
that's the
I've, got,
thing. It's
I've got four
amazing.
kids, but
When you're
you know,
earning the least, you're working the hardest. And
mm,
when you're earning millions, you're working less. That's the beautiful impact of this industry. If you can tolerate that pain. Your
yeah,
wife now, Anne Marie, mate, what an amazing woman that she knew what she wanted. She was willing to pay that price. And you guys have raised a beautiful family together. And mate, it's just incredible to see when it clicks, when there's honesty and things. It's
yeah,
interesting that for all the flaws, and you've seen all of the craziness that's going on in the industry about Josh Teslin, because I did an interview with him a couple of weeks ago to really ask him about some of those allegations and things. Because one of the things, now there's still some things to learn from him, because I'm not going to hang that man out to dry for everything that he ever did, because one thing he has in common with you is that insane work ethic. And what he did with both his mum and his wife, he said, if you kind of want to see me more often, you got to come and work with me. Like, so
yeah,
that was the only way that he could manage that principle you're talking about, was hire his mum and his wife. And that's the way that it worked for him. So,
yeah.
man, that's really, really fascinating. So, man, there you go. So for you guys who are sort of starting out, there's a masterclass in you've got to do, because as Jason's saying, he's saying he's not rare because he named the 5 or 6 names that he could name in his area. But understand, there's 40,000 real estate agents in this industry. I could
Mm.
name maybe 20 to 50 that would fit the criteria, because I didn't know all of them in their early days, of course. But the ones that I know their story or I know them at that time, there wouldn't be 100 of them out of 40,000. You know what I mean?
It's no surprises, is there? But I think the thing is, I mean, I think we've all got the basic same skill set in real estate. Once you learn how to list a property, how to sell a property, how to build rapport with a vendor and build things in common, blah blah blah. And yeah, you know your shit. I mean, that's the easy part, isn't it? Yeah, is to learn is the basic skills of real estate. It's not hard. Answer your phone calls, call back vendors, blah blah blah. Yeah, it's pretty easy. So,
Mm.
but the hard part you can't teach is that work ethic, and I think you've either got it or you don't, or you've got that drive to become something special.
Well, what sort of effort? Because you gloss over it like it's a given, but I can promise you, having seen tens of thousands of real estate agents in some capacity like this, where I've spoken to them and talked to them about their career, in some cases more than others.
Yep.
In some cases, like Josh is still here, man. We've got literally a veteran with as much experience as you or I, and as much success as you or I on here in Josh. And I'm
Awesome.
going to love his feedback if he's got some. And Josh, even if you've got a camera, brother, feel free to let me know in the chat because I'm more than honoured for you to jump on and have a yarn if you've got any feedback and commentary about this. But while and because if we can get Josh's commentary on mindset and on what it takes in those early years, that'd be wonderful. But let me ask you, Jace, because you glossed over it a little bit. The effort that we took to know your shit. When you say, "Oh, you got to know your shit," and that's the easy part, but was it that easy? Talk to us about the effort that it took for you in the early days to start to know what to say when you're at that appraisal. Where did you start to get to know
Well,
your shit?
we did a lot of training. So I know I was lucky, Glenn, that I had you as one of my mentors. So I think we did training every Monday and Wednesday. So Monday was more so we talked about our stats from everybody's, how many listings, blah, 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 which is from everyone. So everyone knew if you're performing, you're not performing. And then one person
But then the
did
first
listen.
hour of the sales meeting, before we started talking about the stats and that, what did we do for the hour before the sales meeting?
Well, that was the Tuesday. We do that. So the Monday was more about stats. The Tuesday morning meeting, we'd go through the listing presentation every single week, and then one person would have to do it in front of everybody, and then which was very daunting.
Yes.
And then we'd have to come up and give that person feedback. But every single week we did that listing presentation. Then you had to do it first for 10 minutes with the person next to you before one person in front of everyone. So every week we did that, and then we all found something great that someone else said or someone else did, and but yeah, we all had one listing presentation, the entire office. And eventually, even I stopped doing listing presentations.
Yep.
And
Well, and
everyone's
that's
different.
because you didn't though, Jace. You practice. It's man, I'm telling you, I'd love
Yeah,
your take. That is there a principle here that maybe even is duplicated in the military? We did the reps so often.
yeah,
We could say the right words in our sleep. It no longer had
yeah,
to be in that same order because our
yeah,
words became best practice because
yeah,
of the reps,
yeah.
So
No, I
is
agree.
that the
I
way
mean,
we
look,
learn any skill, like even in your military days?
yeah, I think everyone's different, aren't they? I mean, like, there was a guy called Michael Knights. I don't know what he's doing anymore, but he used to be a gun back in the day. He did Redcliffe markets, so not even my
Oh,
market, but
yes, he was up against
um,
Andrew Rybelt. I remember.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he, I had a property out there in North Lakes, and I sold it 20 years ago. But I got him in, and even him, who was an old guy at the time, been around for a long time, he had a listing presentation and he nailed it. He opened up and did his stats, did his bits and pieces. For him, that listing presentation was gold. But for me, what I realized, it's about building rapport with an owner. So if I can get my listing presentation, do my bits and pieces, build rapport, and have something in common with them, very quickly I could win them over and have them hang out of my hands. So, I mean, everyone's different. It just depends what your skill set is and what your thing is. But I mean, yeah, we did heaps of training. Like, you can't. Yeah, we did it every Monday, every Tuesday, didn't we? For 2-3 hours every week. It was
Yeah.
training. Then
And do
then we
you
had to read a book. Then we had to do this and write book reports every week as well. And so
and
we did a lot.
and you were besties and good mates. There was because I was sort of like I was only a couple of years older, but I was the old fart of the crew. But then there was you, Harpreet, and Ash, and
Yeah, Ash.
young
Yeah.
Harpreet. Now I'm going from memory, and you were his mate, so you might be able to correct my aging memory about this situation. But I remember it was Harpreet who set me up. And I don't know how much he involved you in it. And surely he did because you were mates. And he had to be the highlight of his career, or at least one of them,
Oh God,
when
yeah.
he booked an appointment up against Jason Adcock and Judy Goodyear, which is basically the equivalent of going up with the number
Matt and
one and number
Sarah.
two agents in the state. You
It,
know
it's
what
like
I
it's like
mean?
going. It's like being against Sarah Hackett and Matt Lancashire.
Yeah. Or it's like going into an all-time greatest boxing match, and your
Yeah.
first opponent's Ali, and if you happen to beat Ali, you're up against frickin' Brock Lesnar or something. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Conor
Like,
McGregor.
you can't win, right?
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
win. He's
Yeah.
a first-year Indian,
Yeah.
22-year-old,
Yeah.
no brand.
Yeah.
Just that vendor is an idiot. Let me
Yeah,
just say this.
his name was. I won't say that name now because you just called him an idiot. So I won't say his
No,
name.
no, okay. I say that
But,
respectfully.
let me say his first thing was Sir. His name was he was knighted.
I didn't even know that.
He was a Sir, and he was Australia's biggest art collector of Picasso. Sorry, the world's biggest Picasso art collector outside of the fucking museum in Rome.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
When I say he was an idiot,
yeah,
what I mean is
he's an idiot to choose Harpreet.
he was convinced by a presentation
Mm,
that was delivered by Harpreet so well that a
Yeah.
20-year-old first-year Indian in real estate with
Mm.
no track record whatsoever won the most prestigious listing in Brisbane
Yeah.
real estate up until that time. Tell us
Yeah.
your recollection of that story, other than what you just dropped on us, that this guy was a player.
This guy was this vendor was, fuck me. He was a player. It was like mate, and it was like that $7 million double-story penthouse.
It was
in
the
South
most
Bank.
expensive piece of real
Yeah.
estate in, at least
And
most expensive
so,
apartment in
Harpreet-
Queensland at the time.
Harpreet, as you can hear by his name, he was an Indian guy. It was straight away sometimes harder when your vendor's an Australian.
Because how did you get the lead in the first place?
Cold calling.
Cold call.
And then he was good, but he wasn't polished. And not only did he get this listing, he got a $75,000 marketing campaign. And this is $75,000 20 years ago. So that's probably like $150. Like, it was like bullshit. Like my campaign for a new fund was like, keep it relative, was $1,500.
Five.
So,
yeah,
so-
okay.
so
Five was our
those days,
premium.
REA, no, it wasn't. It was way less than that because REA was only $50 back those days.
Yeah, but remember, I agree, but that courier mail advertising was tough because
Yeah,
it was
it was like
$1,000 for a
page.
little one.
Yeah.
It was 10 grand for a full page, and that was discounted, distressed rates.
Yeah.
So
But
if you wanted
closed 70
newspaper,
grand.
yeah,
So he got like 8 weeks of full pages in the Courier Mail. He had like everything, and he didn't sell it.
yeah. But I remember the vendor.
He listed it, and it was awesome.
Well, I remember he ended up getting a price of 6 point something, and the vendors chose that it wasn't worth that for him. So I was stunned, though, by the ability to win that business. And, did Harpreet ever, because they played a gag on me, they came back to me, Harpreet said, Glenn, we've got a problem. And I'm like, because I was just made the sales manager, brand new at the sales manager role. And Harpreet says, Glenn, we've got a problem. I'm like, what did you do? And and he goes, well, we went and did the listing presentation, like you said, and and it went okay, and he went along with it, and he said, okay, yeah, right, and I said, so what's the problem? And he goes, we just don't know how we're going to spend this marketing, and he shows the check because it was fully vendor paid up front, like it wasn't this pay upon settlement or whatever. And so, like, do you credit what do you credit that to? I mean, surely it's a combination of things.
Well, obviously he'd been on the listing presentation for 6 months. He knew it inside out, so he had his thing sorted. But I mean, what he did for me, he didn't get that sale, but he ended up getting 3 or 4 other big penthouses. He met this lady. Oh, I forgot her name now. She was a funny lady, and she owned like 4 penthouses in Brisbane. And he listed 3. He listed like the Casino Towers penthouse,
Right.
River Place penthouse after that, which was quite prestige, next to Howard Smith Wharfs now. And he listed, I think, Admiralty Keys penthouse. So. But he ended up listing 3 or 4 other massive properties that were all 3-4 mil plus. Back then it's like 8 mil now. So he as much as he didn't sell that gave him, when you list, the best thing about listing is you list more when you list. It's easier to list when you have listings. So because he had all this rapport and all these ads, he actually had a lot more listings, and then he made money from the other listings.
Yeah, for sure. And what you just said there, again, glossing over gold, is I remember one of our mantras was the best way to get listings is to have listings. Because of that signboard presence and all of those things.
And still is. Yeah.
And do you think that just winning that business against the best of the best gave him enough confidence to think, geez, this can be done?
Yeah, 100%,
Mm,
100%, and which is what helped him get the next three or four big penthouses. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, so
So
no,
definitely the
that
first sale that needs to be made, and this is one thing they definitely did at that organization on me, on you, on Harpreet, on all of us, is they somehow convinced us, even though it wasn't necessarily true, that we were the superior option to a traditional real estate agency because of our unique selling propositions, our point of difference, you called it. What were
yeah.
some examples of our points of difference that we used to differentiate ourselves from the Ray Whites, the Remaxes, and the more incumbent players? Not that these points of difference are necessarily what will work today, even though there's a lot of argument that says a few of them still really, really would. But the point was, we sold ourselves that our method was superior, even though there's a lot of argument that says, with the benefit of hindsight, that maybe it wasn't.
I think we sold ourselves rightly or wrongly as property brokers back then. I remember a part of that presentation was we're Alto property brokers. And the reason we're property brokers is that we give a guarantee that we'll conjunct 50-50 with every agent in Brisbane on your property. So that was one of our things in our presentation. And I think a lot of landlords, and the truth is, most agents don't ask you if you're conjunct anyway. But saying that to a vendor at the time, that had a bit of, so that was probably our biggest pull, or our difference that we told people in our listing presentations, that you're listening to our property brokers. What that means is this basically is for everybody, because we'll tell everybody that we'll give them half the commission to be looking after you as the vendor. So I remember that was our
That was
go-to
a big
line.
one, man. And what I used to
Mm,
do for mine, because I wasn't good at the volume like you were, right? You were the volume king. What I was probably best at in our company was percentage wise. Once I was at a listing
yeah,
presentation, I could win them because I had my words down pat. I remember while we had those compulsory meetings of Monday and Wednesday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, whenever our sales meeting was, I think it was Tuesday
yeah,
and Wednesday,
yeah,
I can't even remember. But anyway, we had the two. We had the skills session and
yeah,
we had the main sales meeting, which also started with a bloody skills session, you know. Um,
yeah,
but then in that fast track group for a year or so, it was daily we had to perfect this bloody nonsense. And I remember mine on that particular unique selling proposition, that point of difference, is I wouldn't use the word conjunction because every agent can say they conjunct. So I used to
yeah.
use language that they couldn't say. So I used to say, well, with our unique property brokerage system, it's kind of like, Jason, have you got a property, like a finance broker? Have you ever used a finance broker before?
Yeah.
Okay, so well, as you know, they don't care if the right move for you is, get your loan from Westpac or Resi or Wizard Home Loans or whatever. Whatever's the best deal for you, that's what that finance broker does. So in a similar way, I don't care if the right buyer for this property, the one with the highest amount of money to get you that premium, if that comes from the local LJ Hooker office or Ray White office or Remax office, I've got a network of the best agents in every office in the local area and even interstate where if the right buyer is coming through that mechanism, I give them the lion's share of the commission. Like I look after them so that they'll work with me in order to
Mm,
bring all of their buyers. Like, of course, they've got properties to sell themselves, but if their property isn't right for their hundreds of buyers that they're dealing with on a daily basis, they look at my stock list because they know they'll be
mm,
able to earn some commission even from those buyers where the match isn't quite right. So we've got this amazing network where we don't care whether we sell it
mm,
or the buyer comes through one of our referral partners, and we only bring on the best ones. Not we've vetted them to make sure we keep the, let's say, not so favorable agents with the not so favorable tactics and
mm,
things. We keep them away because that's not in your best interest. But it's kind of like you hire me and I'm your spokesperson to the entire marketplace, not
mm,
just my buyers, but all the other agents' buyers as well. That makes
mm,
sense, yeah? And how
mm,
can you argue with that as a seller? You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, it
And
works, isn't
um,
it?
and so
Yeah.
by removing the industry word conjunction, which they don't know what is anyway, I
Mm,
described to them what a conjunction is. And I remember on a few occasions, man, I would have vendors ask me, how much extra do you guys charge?
yeah.
And we were regulated at the time. We could only charge that
Yes.
maximum amount. I would
5%, the
say,
first 18,000, 2.5
yeah.
the balance. Yeah,
And I
yeah.
would just say, yeah, well, look, the unfortunate thing, I know our board would love to be charging a premium because we absolutely deliver on that premium, but we're regulated by the amount that we can only charge you what any one of those agents, if you chose one of them, would charge. So it's kind of like buy one, get 12 free, in a sense, and kind of makes sense, yeah. Mate, that was so powerful in winning business that
Yeah,
think
it
about
was.
what that means for the consumer to ask me, how much extra do you charge?
Mm,
What have I done to the value proposition in their head?
100%.
I've made an
100%.
idiot with no experience more valuable than Judy Goodger.
Yeah. Which is just all about your words and your presentation, isn't it? Which is what we
Correct.
learned and had to
Yeah.
unpack. So,
Yeah. Words
yeah,
matter, man. And that there's a
yeah,
reason that as painful as it was, sitting through those goddamn role plays, we got our
yeah,
words right.
100%.
Because I remember some of the role plays you guys used to do to each other. You guys were,
Brutal.
well, you were brutal. You made the public, the vendors, feel like
Yeah,
kittens or,
yeah.
or, or a pillow compared to the brutality of us sitting there going, oh yeah.
But that's
And
been
you were
one though,
worse
because
at
I
it than
mean,
me. I couldn't even play along being a bastard like you guys could. You'd sit there and go, yeah. And I remember Harpreet was the best at it. He would be such a bastard as a role-playing
oh yeah,
vendor. He'd sit there and
yeah.
go, yeah, tell
No,
me.
Quan was the hardest.
Oh, Kwong Tran.
Yeah,
Yeah. He was a
yeah,
tough son of a gun.
yeah. But
Yeah.
but but, but I think that's it though. I mean, the easy things are the hard things. The hard things are doing your training, knowing your script, knowing your dialogues, knowing all your rebuttals, knowing what to say if I can achieve a commission elsewhere. I need to speak to my wife. I need to do this. Blah 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 blah. Like once you've nailed all your scripts and dialogues, you've done your training. It once again it fast tracks you, doesn't it?
Yeah, do they say some of that stuff in the military? And I don't know if this is a cliche or whether you guys actually say it, but there's something about not bleeding in battle because you bleed in training or something. What's the saying?
Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah, it's exactly what you're saying.
Something like that. Hurt in the training room so you don't die on the battlefield or whatever. Yeah.
But the same footy, like, yeah, the way you train is the way you play.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so true. Like if you train like a pussy on the football track, you're not going to play good on Saturdays. You're not used to going hard and getting bumped, and yeah, you got to train the way you play.
Yeah. So I still maintain that unique selling proposition because it's not like we conjuncted on every piece of stock,
We
you
didn't
know.
conjunct at all. We or the same as everyone does now. Like if someone could give you a call and you got a listing on, you know,
Yeah. And look, anyone could have had our unique selling proposition, it's just the way we worded it. They
mm,
didn't.
mm,
And so because I remember I did lean on that a fair bit. And I remember there was a bloke I conjuncted with a couple of times. And one time, and this is still on the subject of unique selling proposition, but this is a case study that I really liked because I embraced that principle. So I did have a network of agents that I would work with, and that included our internal ones because we worked with each other's stock as well a lot. And I
yeah,
remember once he couldn't make it for a buyer appointment that he had, and it was already booked, it was already done, and he called me and asked me if I could do it without him to run his buyers. They ended up buying it. He did nothing. He got his check. He couldn't have been happier. He never came on another buyer run with me again. He just sent me his buyers.
awesome.
And every now and then they would buy. He would get his money.
Yeah,
He was
nice,
effectively sending me his database.
perfect.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Wonderful. And I remember another story because we had trained with that mental, we'd work together. We wouldn't say, I'm selling this because I want all the comp. It'd be, I've listed it, Chase. If you've got a buyer, come. Harper,
yeah,
if any of you got. And I remember going to Cabo San Lucas in Mexico. I was blind, rotten drunk with Sammy Hagar from Van Halen on the beach of Cabo because I knew Aaron Hagar, Sammy Hagar's son. I'm aging myself because Van Halen is like, old school now.
yeah,
I'm having the time of my life for 2 weeks, and I came back and three of my listings had sold. So I'd made like $15,000 while I was drunk on the beach of San Lucas because I'd trained that network to sell my stuff. That's you guys, you know.
yeah,
Beautiful to have that kind of a unique selling proposition that wins you business and gives you kind of Look, I loved that little side benefit that all I had to do was list them. I don't care who sells the bastards. Sure, if my marketing does it, great, but list, 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 list.
Yeah. But I think these days it's a bit different now. Because I mean, this last 5 years in particular, there's not a lot of listings. So generally speaking, not many agents can junk these days.
No,
I
well,
think
you don't
if you're
have
good
to.
enough to get the
Multiple
listings,
offers first
you'll get
open.
the sales. So
Yeah.
different market now, isn't it?
But it would still work
different
as a
cycles.
listing tool,
Oh, of course
even
it
though you
would.
don't have to conjunct to get the thing
Absolutely.
sold.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So man, is there anything you've identified? Because I know we're talking about Agent 1.0 and this, and we've given a great class on those elements you need to perfect. But
Yeah.
as you evolved and Jason Bond became the name, because that's Agent 2.0, when everyone in your target market area thinks real estate, they think you. Matt Lancashire
Yeah.
has definitely adopted that thing when someone in the New Farm area, because you did go towards projects for an extensive period of time, earned some great money dealing with full developments and things, and now a good listing for Jason is a 30 pack with however many tens of millions of dollars worth of stock to sell. That's a good listing for Jason nowadays. So it's less about being a household name to the mum and dad consumer, even though that's still helpful that you've got so many people that still have you in that positioning. But someone like a Matt Steinwade in Terrigal, or a Josh Brockhurst south of the river down there in his area, or a Jay Stanley down in Bunbury, that is a household name in their area. What are some of the things you've identified in the modern market that lends Jason Bond, I suppose, as he moves to Agent 2.0 and then, heaven forbid, 3.0, that you'd be advising our kind of current stock of agents to be embracing?
Well, I think we all know that media and social media is the way to go, isn't it? And it's so advanced these days where you can do your searches so everyone in New Farm sees your ad, or anyone above the age of 40, i.e. they probably own a property, can see your ads. So I mean that's your 2.0, isn't it? For me, it doesn't matter because we sell projects, so we're doing stuff everywhere. So we don't need to be that anymore. But I mean, obviously, if I was coming back now to the 2.0, I'll do 1.0 first and get my listings. And once I get my listings, I'll make sure that everyone in New Farm knows that Jason Bond is listing and selling a place in New Farm. And once everyone knows your name and you are that household name, it gets easier. Like 1.0, we could do it. It was harder because you had to call everyone, and then you got signs. In some suburbs like New Farm, you can't put signs up in some apartments. So it's only the houses where you're getting the exposure. So, I mean, but it is easier these days because everyone's on social. I mean, my mum, who's 68 or something, she's on Facebook. She doesn't like my Instagram. She likes my Facebook. So I know that the younger people are on Instagram, or the younger people are on
TikTok and Snapchat.
Yeah, in Snapchat, and then obviously that people my your age, Glenn, I think we're more the Instagram era, and then my mum and he's more the Facebook era.
No,
So,
I'm more with your mum and dad, brother.
Yeah, I thought I didn't want to embarrass you.
No, I'm with you, bro. But that's the thing. You've identified it perfectly because we do the measurements. I own a social media agency where we are the marketing agency for hundreds of agents across the country. And the people who own property, even though the advertising engine that controls Instagram is the same engine that controls Facebook, it's still Meta. It's still the same audience targeting. It's the same everything. But the cost per lead, the cost per impression, the cost for everything is more on Instagram per result than it is on Facebook. And I can tell you why. It's that your mum is on Facebook who owns $1 million property, and the typical 32-year-old is maybe buying a $700,000 property, but they're not selling a $2.4 million property. So Facebook is the play. And I don't care what agent tells you, but you got to be on TikTok because I get 20 million views. Sure, get 20 million viral views from some rap fans in Iowa. Who gives a shit? The old lady in New Farm is on Facebook. Because here's what happened. Guess what happened to the young folk? And again, I almost put you in that, even though you're an old man like me nowadays. Are you 50 yet? You're not, are you?
No,
you're in your 40s, aren't you? 45.
Yeah.
So you're 8 years my junior. So the young folk like you, as soon as you saw that your mum was on, because what happened was Facebook used to be for the young as well, right? It started off in college campuses.
What's all there was back then was Facebook.
And we all jumped on Facebook, leaving MySpace. We all
Yeah.
left MySpace and went to Facebook.
Yeah.
Then, when the kids realized that their parents jumped onto Facebook to see what they're up to, all the kids pissed off to Instagram, then Snapchat, now
Yeah.
TikTok. Because
Yeah.
what happens when your grandparents and your parents turn up at the party? The kids piss off to another party. So
Yeah.
what that's left on Facebook is all us 40 plus year olds arguing about Trump and Josh Teslin or whoever it might be. We're all sitting on there fighting amongst each other. All the kids are gone, and our market is sitting there absolutely captured. And most real estate agents are abysmal at their social
But
media marketing.
but
Abysmal.
but that's what we said before. It's know your market, it's know the other agent, but it's also it's nowhere to advertise. I mean, why waste money on Instagram or fucking TikTok? To get your 22 million views, who gives a shit? But if you're there to get listings, make sure you speak to the right audience.
Facebook's the play. Yep. And that's the thing
Facebook's
is, you guys are connected with me. So make sure you stay in touch with me and ask me, hey, has Instagram taken over yet? And the answer is right now, absolutely not. And there will come a day, though, where Facebook will happen the same sort of thing as MySpace. Right. Eventually it'll become a wasteland and there'll be another one. Because as all of these now Instagram users and as we age into, the Jason Bond era that now has a preference for another, it'll age into those other platforms.
Yeah.
And guess what will happen to the kids when the 45-year-old Jason is now messing around on Instagram? Guess what happens to the kids when it's populated by 45-year-olds? They're off to another one. So now we're left with the 45-year-old millionaires like Jason Bond on Instagram. You know what I mean? So eventually the time will come where it won't be forever that Facebook is the right play. But in 2026, I don't care how uncool it is, Facebook is the play for your real estate exposure. It's the letterbox.
I'm mid 40s. So I mean, there's probably a lot of people like me that look, I ain't go on Facebook sometimes, whereas I'm on Instagram every day still. So I think there's a lot of people my age that still own
But you're a bit young. I got to give it to you. You're a bit young. You always were still cooler than most. So I agree with you. But the metrics, that you said it before. I remember I heard a saying that words speak, numbers scream.
Yeah.
Right. And I cannot argue with empirical data that says cost per lead is X on Facebook, say $40 per lead, cost per lead. Even targeting it and changing the content so it's Instagram appropriate, cost per lead's 80 on Instagram. Can't argue.
The good thing, it's cool thing about you, Glenn, is that this is what you do for a job now as well. So you do know these numbers because that's your job, is to know the numbers. So when you're spending my money or someone else's money to find us leads of sellers, you know where to look because this is your job. And I think that's the beauty of Agent 2.0 is to engage someone like Glenn Twiddle to instead of doing, I can do my own ads if I was to go back in there again and do it myself. But I mean, this is your job. You know where to spend the money. So why would I spend $1,000 a month on everything if most of the buyers are coming from Facebook or most of your leads of vendors are Facebook? So, I mean, I think like anything, go to the experts.
Yeah.
So,
and certainly, because I appreciate you saying that, brother. And I've I've got to learn something in 20 odd years of doing this craziness. But yeah, I suppose it's a case of not only getting the vendors, but in just shoving your face down their throats in any way, shape, or form. Like, tell me about, because one of the elements of Agent 2.0 is being there when they don't need a real estate agent. And I know you've dabbled in this from time to time, even though you are the master of bulk. Tell me about some of the things where you've engaged the community in a non-real estate way. Maybe even things like the James Bond evening. Maybe tell me about the thinking behind that. And are there any other instances of stuff that we've done? Because I'm sure we've done some things where we've had camera crews and we've done things that were non-real estate.
Yeah. I mean, look, we've always been big on giving back to charities, especially local charities. So, if there's a local family that's suffering in our core area, or there's been floods and bits and pieces. I mean, we're in New Farm, so there was a big
what'd you do in the
floods
floods?
in 2011. We just got our office just working for 3 days, just sandbagging and helping people out. And I think the biggest thing you can do in your community is help, because it's your word of mouth that get you everywhere. I mean, we had a James Bond diabetes, I think, was the charity. My brother's got diagnosed with diabetes at the time. So I think we did for like 6 months, $2,000 from every sale that we did went to this fund. And then we had a James Bond night. We invited the whole Newfoundland, the whole community. And you were there. I think we had 200 people there for that night.
Yeah,
And,
who was the
and
footy guy? Someone was there of note, wasn't there? All I remember is the beautiful blonde woman. I've stayed in touch with her since. Um,
Michelle,
no, what was her name? Tall,
it's
blonde,
a different blonde. Oh, Brooke.
Brooke.
Yes, he was
Yes,
the MC. Yes, with Richard Champion.
Richard
It
Champion.
was a
That's
football
right.
guy. Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
So
There's
you
no
hired a
basketball.
local celebrity
That's
and
how long
Brooke.
ago it was. Yeah,
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 and put on a function, and that was packed of New Farm legends,
yeah,
homeowners.
yeah. It was. I think when you think of it, I think the event cost us $15,000 or $20,000 back in the day, which is maybe 30, 40 grand these days. But we got heaps of listings from that, and just also it was great. So I think we donated 30 grand to Diabetes Australia. So there's your goodwill cause, which is I think every real estate agent needs to get some good um, some goodwill
Some
sometimes
good
because
juju. Yeah.
some good juju because I mean we are real estate agents and we are painted a certain way.
Yep.
So I think it's good to be a good guy sometimes.
Yeah, no, for sure. And of course, that footage, and again, I don't know this, and then I know this now. You can use that footage forever. That's the one thing that I wish I'd have known, that some of the things we should have documented on film, we could have used more effectively. Because, as I learned that, like, look at how I've, utilized the assets of the celebrities that I've worked with over time. It's built a brand for me that has, it'll serve me for the rest of my life. Like, I don't have to get a job laying bricks for the rest of my life because of that video footage of those acts
Yeah,
that we did,
yeah,
Mm.
100%.
I wish I'd have
Well,
documented more of our training sessions, back in the
yeah,
day or whatever. Oh, mate, I tell you, here's one thing I wish I'd have documented. And you should take some pride in this because you were one of the primary people that made this happen. I was recruiting, and you remember what our recruiting process was.
yes,
I would have to interview people, person after person after person, because the sale I was making was come and work for free in a goddamn boys' club sweatshop where we're going to be drinking, making cold calls, and just being ridiculous. You're going to work hard and you're going to be paid nothing. Are you in? That was my sales pitch, right? So, but you would go to 4,000 postcode and the surrounding suburbs, so they encompassed your listings at New Farm, etc. And
yeah,
I remember it was like one of those recruiting sessions for a month. If you did 4,000 postcodes with the surrounding area, all you would see for 3 pages were our listings,
yeah,
3 pages on realestate.com of us before Rain and
yeah,
Horn CBD had their first listing on the bottom of page 3. Like, I
yeah.
have never seen dominance like that since, ever,
No, it was
ever.
good.
I
It was good.
cannot believe
Yeah,
how the hell, with our skill set, and we've just described basically everything we had. We had somehow
yeah,
some mindset and motivation to do it. We had volume of numbers that wasn't me. I would pull up stumps at about 100 a week before I started getting sooky. Jason was our king that they accused of, and again, I'll get you to tell that story in a sec. Jason was our king, able to consistently do the 400 connects a week. That means that poor bastard had to dial 1,000 times to connect with 400 people a week. That's why his calls were quick. Hey, Jace, thinking of selling? No, next kind of thing.
yeah,
But that's the skills. We role played and got our presentation right. We knew it word perfect because we drilled until we knew every word, because we'd have a team of 20 agents looking at us, knowing every word while we're role playing. And if we got one word wrong, we would know because they'd
yeah,
tell us,
yeah,
That was the theory that had us utterly dominant and number one by a country mile in that area. So bloody hell, mate, take a bow for paying the price back then, but now reaping the rewards of what you're enjoying to this day.
Look, like, I think everybody knows what the basics are to do in real estate. So, I mean, anyone can get to that level. You don't need to be special. You just need to do the work.
Mm.
So, but it's a massive. I mean, I've had my own agency now for the last 20 years, and I haven't found another person like me or Matt Lancashire since.
It's tough to find them.
And it's easy for me to say, all you need to do is hard work, but the hard work is hard work. And you've really got to have a big why as to why you want to do these things, because it is crazy. You don't have a life. You you don't go and watch the Bombers play, even though they're playing at the game on a Saturday afternoon. It's like, no, fuck no, I can't do that. I'm busy. No, I can't go to out the piece with all my mates because they're all going out to the new restaurant or whatever it is. You can't because you've got your thing booked in. So it does take a lot of sacrifice. But whereas now I don't miss any of the Bombers game now, and I go drinking and I go out to dinners because I've done the hard yards back when I was young. I think it's a 2 or 3 year really hardcore sacrifice to do that, but then you'll have decades of, it gets so much easier.
Yeah, mate. I can't wait. I did get a message from Josh that he's popping in and out, and I can't wait. I'm going to drag Josh in on one of these things and get his take on what he's been. He's honoured us to be listening into this because he really is a player, man. $multi-million dollars, and actually something you just mentioned there, Jay. So, because again, this is all about finding the things in common. What you just said about what you did during the floods and just serving and helping and all of that sort of thing. Jay Stanley, he is the Jason Bond of a place called Bunbury, just a killer. Mate, he's the guy, I don't know if I've ever told you about him, but he was like you on the calls, right? And he was so brutal. I don't know if he still does it, but what he did, he made so many calls, he'd be on the phone, hey, do you want to sell, whatever. He would do a bit of a talk or whatever. And he had it so down pat, he knew how long his wrap up was. And
Awesome.
so he'd start dialing on phone number 2, the next number, so that he'd have it time saying, no, cool, well, look forward to the next chat. Okay, yeah, catch you then. If you need anything, I'm here. Later. Hey, it's Jay Stanley here. And the double phone move, man.
That's
Just
awesome.
to get it, how brutal is that guy, right?
What I ended up doing is I got my assistant to actually go through my database and save everyone's name on my phone. So it'd be like vendor 1 Abbott Street, vendor 2 Abbott Street, vendor 3 Abbott Street, and save the numbers. So instead of dialing it, when I did my call sets, we'd be like, all right, today we're doing Abbott Street, we're doing Murray Street. It had already been on my phone. It'd be like bang, 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 and we'd just do that. So eventually, after about 2 or 3 years, that's what we did. We literally saved the whole of New Farm's database in my mobile phone.
Yeah.
So I could just to make it more efficient. So there is things you can do.
By the end, did you ever get to this point with them? Given the shortness of your calls, did you ever get to the point of, hey, it's me? Because back in the day, your number didn't come up.
No, I did. I think after about a year or two, when I had them save my phone as Bender Glenn Twiddle 1 Abbott Street or whatever it was, eventually it made me funny. Like, hey, Glenn, it's your friend the stalker Jason here from All Brisbane Realty. How you going? And I'd make a joke. I know I spoke to you 4 months ago. You said no, you said Pine Box. I just want to give you a call, see if that Pine Box is coming closer, or how you going. Eventually, after years of doing the same suburbs, you do know everybody, and there's a whole bunch of guys that you will absolutely know. I think after calling Glenn Twiddle 10 times over 3 years, I'd get fucked every 3 months. Eventually, you do say, oh, yeah, it's Glenn Twiddle, and he's got the big dog. And because you've door knocked him, you've seen his house, you've knocked the bro. Eventually.
Did you ever wear down a hater? Did you ever wear down one that was just piss off, and then they sold with you?
Oh, heaps of them. Because I mean, I don't think people hate you. I think people get annoyed because they don't think you're selling. Then all of a sudden one day it's like, actually, Jason, I might sell.
And did they ever express, if you said heaps, did they ever overtly tell you that, mate, I told you to piss off and you just hung in there? Was that the criteria sometimes that was the choice?
Heaps, yeah, heaps of them. I mean, I think at the time there was only like 5,000 properties in the whole of New Farm. So when you think about it, when I'm doing 400 calls a week, well, it's only going to take me 3 or 4 months to speak to everybody. So you speak to them 4 times a year. Eventually, everyone knows you. Everyone knows you. I mean, you do that, and I used to do flyers. This is back in the day when we had a printer in our office. So I did it the cheap way, but I got my partner Emery at the time, my wife now, but she was good at marketing, so she'd come up and do my open homes every Friday, and then I'd come up and every Friday I would walk the streets of New Farm and give out all my open home times. And it would say Jason Bond's open homes on Saturday, and I'd literally write the entire New Farm or a big patch of it to my open homes every Saturday. So then I was doing something different. So then I was walking the street. I met people. I saw people. I knew what every property looked like, and so it got my education of and knowledge of the area to the next level. So that was my Jason Bond 2.0. It wasn't the social media because it wasn't there back then. It was
Yeah,
doing my
you
brochures
used
every
bulk
Friday.
phone calls and printing and shit to be
Bulk printing.
2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mate,
Yeah.
Josh just said that Jay Stanley in Bunbury still religiously does his 100 calls a day. And Josh said he had him speak to his office a few weeks ago. So, mate, he is still applying the formula to this day to the tune of millions of dollars, and he's loving it. The reason I did bring up Jay, though, is the thing you've got in common, other than brutal phone ability and discipline, is every Saturday morning, one of his rituals that I don't know if it was a team of the whole office or if it was him in a private kind of a fast track group or something, but they had a group of men and they never used to take credit, and they used to just go around every Saturday before any opens or anything, and for like an hour and a half would just find people who needed stuff done. And they would fix fences and renovate. They'd bring handymen and fencing people and roofing people and mowing and landscaping and gardening. And
Awesome.
they would just serve every week with discipline. Can you imagine the word of mouth that built? And they wouldn't be, they wouldn't be all branded up as and showboating that they're the local real estating or whatever. They would just go out and selflessly serve. And I remember when Jay showed me some of those photos and things of the appreciation that they received with that practice, it's exactly the same thing that you just described of how to help someone they don't give a shit about real estate. Well, what do they give a shit about? That their pipes have been leaking all year and it's wet season, you know?
It's even to get nothing from it, just to feel good that you've done something good sometime is awesome. But hey, GT, I've got to go in a second, but before I go, there's one letter I want to tell people about that I got awesome results from. So this is a Glenn Twiddle idea. So Glenn Twiddle gave me this idea of, you don't know me from a bar of soap, but my name's Jason Bond. So it was a cold prospecting letter. So I came up and I brought 1,000 bars of soap, small soaps, and I put them in an envelope and I posted 1,000 envelopes. And then there was a bar of soap in it and there was a letter. And the letter said, "How you going? My name's Jason Bond. You probably don't know me from a bar of soap, but I'm a local agent. New farm, blah, blah, blah." I got so many fucking listings from that letter. I ended up doing that 4 or 5 times. It was great. It was just something different.
The lumpy mail strategies, brother. I love them all. And, mate, and that's one of the things, again, an identified trait of top performers. You just heard it from Jason, is test something that a mentor might suggest, see if it works for you, and be coachable. Because at the time, Jason was performing better than this bloke that he calls his mentor. And yet he still took something from that mentor, and I'm honored that he did, and got results from it. So
I got a $4 million house in New Farm from that.
Very nice.
100 grand commission check from that fucking bar of soap.
Bar of soap that cost you 50 cents.
And then there was another guy, Josh, who worked with us, and he had a letter, and it was I didn't think it was great. I thought it was a bit alarming. There was like, "Dear Glenn, regarding your property at 1 Mark Street, New Farm. Hey Glenn, can you please give me a property?" There's a concern with your house as something. Can you give me a call?
Right.
And I never used this letter, but he got the best result. You got to go, "Shit, what's wrong with my house?"
Right. Okay.
So I didn't like that letter, but he got a lot of results.
There'd be a way to word that gets the response without saying, "Oh my God, emergency, quick, give me a call."
Yeah.
But I get the principle, and I see why it worked. So
it worked.
Yeah,
I didn't want to do it, but Josh got great results because he said something people call him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bang,
and that's the point
number.
is when you can. It's just all about meeting someone, to me, so that they can know. Actually, before you go, let me just ask you this.
Yep.
You've got a likable, because to me, this is the only defense against AI is humanity, right? And I'm going to talk about this in Agent 3.0, which is the AI world that we're going to get to. And so I'm giving away a little bit of the lead now, but when everyone can write a really good professional piece of whatever, sales letter, listing copy, when everyone's good, no one's good. When ChatGPT can bring everyone up to the highest standard of professionalism and compelling copy and all of that, The
Yeah.
principle is if everyone's good, no one's good. So that means your
Yeah.
only defense is your human likability. Tell me about what you did en masse to kind of be human and likable rather than being, hello, it's Jason Bond here from blah, blah real estate. How are you today? Kind of thing.
I'm a big believer in just being yourself. Like I'm not the most polished guy in the world. I still swear occasionally. And I think I've always just want to be myself. I'm not going to come up and pretend that I play the piano if you got a piano in your house. I'm going to make a joke and go, holy shit, that's awesome. You're polished. I'm not. I don't know. I think you just need to be yourself, don't you?
Yeah. Well, I tell you,
Ultimately.
more to come in session 3 of this series.
Mm,
That's what we're going to go into deep. Is your only defense is to be a bit rough, a bit well, whatever it is that says about you, your
mm,
humanity, it's going to be your only defense against this upcoming wave of professionalism in
mm.
yesterday's terms, but professional in yesterday's terms is going to be invisibility in the years to come. At least that's my
Yeah.
prediction. I've been right a
Yeah.
lot of times with a lot of predictions, and that's my prediction about the AI world coming forward. And here's the thing,
Mm,
Age, what you said before about what everyone else is doing, you got to do the opposite. I've seen
yeah.
agents en masse running to use AI to distance themselves from their humanity and their human interactions with people rather
Yeah.
than using AI to get more human interactions. And that's going to be our Achilles heel that we're going to use
Oh,
in my world to beat these new
right.
professionals that are all of a sudden
And
so much more professional than they used to be.
mm, well, I just had someone about the other day and asked me, what's your thing about AI? I said, well, obviously AI, you're going to have these computers that are going to sound awesome that can do cold calls for you. So everyone's doing 500 cold calls, everyone. So what do? You got to zig. While everyone's being lazy using AI, when it gets to the next level and they don't know if it's AI or not because it's so fucking good, I think no one's going to take any cold calls in. They're going to go, fuck this. I'm going to hang up on every cold call.
Yep.
Then it's a door knocking method that's going to work. It's not going to be when everyone's using AI doing the telemarketing, no one will get listings from it.
Yep, that's exactly right. And what I'm saying is right now, while you can
Yep.
still talk to humans, your only hope is to get into their phone so that when they see the
Yeah.
phone number, they'll answer
Yeah.
it because of you and your humanity. Because,
Yep.
yeah, private numbers will never be answered. Most landlines won't be answered because overseas call centers can mask their phone number to look
Yeah.
like a O2 Sydney number. So our
Yeah.
only hope is going to be humanity, but more to come on that. Jace, thanks for
I like it.
overstaying me,
That's okay.
overstaying
Thanks
my
for having
welcome,
me.
brother. Thank you,
No,
man.
and anything for you, Glenn.
You've
Always.
you've over delivered, brother. If you need anything from me to return the favor, mate, you know I'm in your debt. Thank you, my man.
Well, a bourbon and Diet Coke next time you're in Brisbane, I think has to be on the cards.
Deal.
All
Deal,
right.
brother.
Thanks,
All right, my
brother.
man. See you
See you,
later,
mate.
bud.
Bye.
Thank you, mate. Mate, what a bloody champion Jason Bond is. I hope that was valuable for you guys. Josh, thanks for popping in with a few comments there. I'd love to have you on and have a yarn with you about your take on some of these subjects. I'm going to do these semi-regularly just to kind of document what we've learned about the levels of real estate. And today's been really one of my, one of my most proudest moments. You've seen what Jason's done. We didn't talk much about his numbers, but let me tell you, the numbers that he does now is astronomical. It'd put him in the top few agents in the country in terms of volume, and yet he's living a life that that he and I would only have dreamed about back when I first met him, and but he paid the price for those first couple of years. So, pride is the wrong word to use because it sounds condescending, but there's no a better word to describe, how I feel about Jason, what he's done with his career and his life. He was a young, crazy army guy, met the right woman and has been loyal and built a family with her and built an amazing life together. And it's just amazing, to see what he's done. So I'm really thankful for him to join us today. So if you do want to catch up with him, Jason Bond, you can find him anywhere. Eliver is his company. But if you Google him and Instagram him or whatever, you'll find him and you'll see what he's up to. Because he's a great guy to connect with. So thank you for today. I hope that was helpful, guys, as a good welcome to Agent 1.0. In our next chat, though, we will be talking about the elements of Agent 2.0 and how to start to get yourself so rock star famous in your area that you have to be on their phone list when they are ready to sell. And you don't have to wait 10 years to start hitting your numbers, because doing it the Agent 1.0 way does take many years for you to get the traction, to get name recognition that they think real estate, they think you. In Chris Gilmore's area, south of the river in Brisbane, they think real estate, they think Chris Gilmore. They don't even necessarily think All Properties Group, or in Jason's case, they don't necessarily think All Brisbane Realty. They don't necessarily think Ray White. They think Matt Lancashire. So it's about your personal brand being first and foremost. Like my friend Vivian Yap, she's been a friend and client for, a dozen plus years. And she has changed in the time I've known her from, what was the first independent? Acton, like an independent real estate agency here in Perth, to LJ Hooker, to Ray White. And those brand changes they weren't even a blip on her radar, because Vivian Yap was the entity that was first and foremost on her marketing, branding, and her positioning. So we're going to talk about the elements of Agent 2.0 when next we meet, and hopefully my voice will be a little recovered by then. But I hope that was helpful to really get up close and personal with Jason, who was a real life example of the type of activity required to get off the ground and then live the life of your dreams after those 4 or 5 years. It's like Jason trained for a gold medal for 4 years, trained hard, worked hard, trained hard, practiced hard, did the reps, did the work all at the same time, won the gold medal, and now can live the rest of his life like a champion. There's a Muhammad Ali quote to that effect. And so that's Agent 1.0. And, more to come on that if you sort of want some further guidance on maybe some of the specifics, some of the prospecting tactics and strategies and things we've got. Just contact me and I'll get you some resources. And that's the beautiful thing about training in those early things, is I can basically give that stuff away for you for free. So if you do want to hit me up, just message me on any of the platforms. Probably Facebook's the best. If you've got my phone number, just text me. And you've probably got my email to get on this webinar. So hit me up if you want some free resources to sort of get you started. Honored to be there. But otherwise, you'll see the invite for part 2 of this, where we cover off on Agent 2.0, when hopefully I can speak a little better. So I'm really thankful that Jason was on today, because he allowed me to only speak half the time, which was a godsend, I promise you. All right, guys. All right, so Josh is just saying he still uses his old Palm Pilot today with all his contacts in it. That's Jay Stanley from Bunbury. Man, I love that man, Josh, as you know. And I'm so glad you've got a fondness for him as I do. And thank you for the compliment. Even Josh said, Josh has got like as much or more experience than I do. And he said it was a good session, fellas. So thanks, Josh. I appreciate it, mate, because it was under less than ideal circumstances health-wise. And geez, look at the lighting effect. It's got white shit there. That's not actually there. But anyway, it's on the camera. So anyway, on that note, guys, until next time, I thank you, and I hope that was enjoyable for you. And thanks again for Josh sticking around. Mate, I'll hit you up soon, mate, see if you can join us on one of these. And until next time, folks, bye for now.